So chapters 5, 6, and 7 deal with those three macroeconomic goals that I mentioned in class last time. What were the three goals? The three goals were, first, to have low unemployment, low inflation, and lastly, high economic growth. Correct? We have now dealt with the definition of unemployment, so we, in a sense, know what that is about. We have dealt with the definition of real GDP, and hence we know what that is about, because growth, economic growth, is defined as increases in real GDP, and we know what real GDP is. So now we come to our second goal, which is low inflation, and so in order to understand what inflation is, we're going to have to study this chapter, chapter 7. So what we are going to do in this chapter is explain what the consumer price index is and how it is calculated. We will explain the limitations of the CPI, and we will also learn how to calculate real money terms from nominal money terms. In other words, how we can compare dollar amounts across time. Okay? So these are the goals of chapter 7. And instead of launching into the PowerPoint itself, I'm going to go to my drawing board, okay, and quickly explain the key concepts to you. So what is the meaning of the term inflation? Inflation is roughly defined as a sustained increase in the cost of living. Another term used quite often is the price level. So that's what inflation is. Inflation is a sustained increase in our cost of living. The key thing here to remember is it has to be sustained. So it can't be like a one-shot increase. Inflation is an ongoing process. It has to be going on for quite a while. And secondly, we're talking about the cost of living. We're not talking about one price. We're not talking about the price of one good. We are talking about all prices. Right? So if the cost of just milk were to rise, let's say, well, that wouldn't constitute inflation. Inflation would be a rise in not just the price of milk, it would be a rise in the price of all goods. Okay, so that is the meaning of the term inflation. Now, let's talk a little bit about this cost of living. What is the cost of living? Can we speak of the cost of living? Now remember that you and I have different costs of living. We're all unique individuals. We all live differently. Correct? So is it possible then to speak of the cost of living? What would that be? Well, roughly, again, the Bureau of Labor Statistics in this case has in mind the average American, if you can think of such a person. Okay? So we have in mind here an average American, which I'm going to draw a stick figure. Maybe I should put on him a cowboy hat or something. Well, there are 6 guns. But anyway, so there you have your average American. Now this person lives, according to BLS, lives on certain goods and services. So imagine then that we have a shopping cart. Okay? So we have a shopping cart here that is full of goods and services that the average American lives on every year. Now this here would contain everything from food, shelter, clothing, medical care, everything that we live on, aspirin to car tires, is in this shopping basket. Right? Now this is called the representative basket. This is called the representative basket of goods. And so what is the cost of living? What is the cost of living? The cost of living is basically the cost of that basket. The dollar cost of buying everything that's in that shopping cart. That is the cost of living. So the US government has in mind an average American and has in mind this basket of goods that the average American lives on. The dollar cost of that basket is the cost of living. Right? Now this basket, let's say, in the year 2000, cost a certain amount. And hence I've put 2000, the date 2000, below that dollar sign. Remember, we're going to put dates below dollar signs. So this was the cost of living in the year 2000. Now this same basket this year will cost how much? We'll have a different cost of living. So the cost of living this year would be that. Do you expect that these two numbers will be the same? Do you expect these to be the same? No. We don't expect these two numbers to be the same. Why? Because our cost of living tends to rise over time. Things become more expensive, right? So what is inflation then? What would inflation be then? Inflation would be the following. It would be the cost of living in 2014 minus the cost of living in 2013. Remember, we have to express this as a percent. Inflation is a percentage figure. So that's the difference in the cost of living between the 2 years, correct? We express this as a percentage of what the cost of living used to be. And that is your rate of inflation between this year and the last year. So what is this then? Inflation is the percentage change in the cost of living from 1 year to the next. Is that correct? And with that, I will stop here today.